lot to get to this morning. Plenty of football. We'll mix in the NBA as well. But we start with the Jets because Joe Douglas, the Jets general manager yesterday, said the team will listen to offers for quarterback Sam Darnold. We have the audio from Joe Douglas. This was Joe Douglas when discussing Sam Darnold yesterday.
I will answer the call, if it's made. And so, as it pertains to Sam, I mean, like I said, Sam's we think a dynamic player in this league with unbelievable talent and who's really, really has a chance to really hit his outstanding potential moving forward. But like I've said earlier, if calls are made, I will answer them.
So you hear that and you're thinking, all right, well, there's no harm in listening to calls, right? There's no harm in, if someone calls you, pick up the phone and answer, right? Nobody's untouchable. Well, if you go back to something Joe Douglas said on October 29th, the year 2019, Connor Hughes at The Athletic tweeted this out. Joe Douglas said on that date, yeah, I think there are untouchable players. I think there are, especially when you're talking about franchise quarterbacks. So if you use Joe Douglas's own words against him, essentially, the writing is on the wall that Sam Darnold has played his last game as a Jet. The Jets will trade Sam Darnold at some point. The Jets are not going to bank on Sam Darnold, even with the lack of weapons and even with the lack of just competent coaching and offensive line help, all the things that have gone against Sam. They're not going to bank on the fact that in year 4, he's able to flip that switch and turn into that franchise caliber quarterback. Joe Douglas has been on the job since June of 2019. He's been around Sam Darnold enough now to be able to form an educated opinion, to be able to factor in all the things that have gone against Sam and still determine whether or not he's capable of being a true franchise quarterback. I love Sam Darnold. I wish him all the best in the world. But I think the writing has been on the wall for a while that the most logical thing for the Jets to do is to either trade for Deshaun Watson, which we'll get to, but more realistically, draft the quarterback when you're sitting there with the second overall pick. You don't have to trade up for that quarterback. You're sitting there coming off a 2-14 season. It is so risky to stick with Sam, and one of these quarterbacks you pass on ends up being great. The rational thing to do would be to trade Sam, get another pick, draft the quarterback second overall, have the quarterback once again on the rookie contract, and start the rebuild. If Joe Douglas sticks with Sam Darnold as his quarterback, it becomes the Joe Douglas quarterback pick. Like, Joe Douglas didn't draft Sam Darnold. That was a Mike McCagnon pick. So if you're Joe Douglas and you might only get one shot at being a team's general manager, don't you want to get the quarterback that you want? If you stick with Sam, you're saying that Sam's your guy. If you move on from Sam, you get a couple of years now to get your guy and develop him. So if the tiebreaker is, we think Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields are all around the same, well, then you go with the rookie quarterback because he's on a rookie deal. You listen for calls on everyone, but if Sam Darnold was truly the Jets franchise quarterback, you don't say, we'll answer the call if it's made. You basically are telling everyone, hey, we're open for business. Call us if you want Sam Darnold. That's how I interpret the comments that Joe Douglas made yesterday. Once again, October 29th, 2019, quote, I think there are untouchable players. I think there are, especially when you talk about franchise quarterbacks. Joe Douglas yesterday, March 3rd, 2021. I will answer the call if it's made as it pertains to Sam. So it tells you all you need to know about the Jet thinking at this point as we sit here about 2 months away from the NFL draft. Sam Darnold's a goner. If the Jets were the Bears or the football team and they were kind of picking middle of the pack, then you stick with Sam, you build around him because there's no obvious answer at quarterback. But when you have the second overall pick, it's too risky to stick with Sam Darnold and hope he turns out to be a great player in his 4th year. Because that's the thing. Let's say Sam Darnold elevates his game next year. How high is he elevating his game to? You're not winning a Super Bowl unless Sam can be a top 10 quarterback. So unless you think Darnold's that, I think the logical move, and the writing's been on the wall for a while, you have to draft the quarterback. Now, Joe Douglas was also asked about trading a lot of assets for one big player. right? Joe Douglas spoke about the importance of drafting well. This was his answer in response to a general question about having the ability to make a big trade for a certain someone that we all know could be available in the next couple of weeks.
What we're positioned to, and obviously we have a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different rabbit holes we can go down. Not to get so much into a hypothetical question, but I just go back to the same thing I said to Rich when he asked about our philosophy. Ultimately, for us to get to where the great teams are, the most consistent teams are, you do that through the draft, and it's the most player friendly or is most team friendly market in sports. And so for us to really be that team that's consistently competing for Super Bowls, we have to hit on our draft picks.
He's absolutely right. The Jets do need to hit on their draft picks. They have 19 of them over the next 2 years. They have 9 total picks in the top 3 rounds over the next 2 years. And they obviously have the 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years after they made the Jamal Adams trade last summer. But I think Joe Douglas may need to break his own rule there. Deshaun Watson, the player he's hypothetically being asked about that he can't comment on specifically in that cut, Deshaun Watson's worth whatever it takes to get him. Now, I'm not saying you trade 4 1s, a bunch of 2s, and Quinnen Williams to get him. But I am saying this. If it means you trade 3 first-round picks and some mid-round picks as well, I believe you do it. Deshaun Watson's 25 years old. He has cost certainty through the year 2025. And please don't give me the excuse, oh, well, how are they going to put a team around him? His salary cap hit is too much. Deshaun Watson's cap hit for this year is $10.54 million. The Jets are going to have about $80 million in salary cap space. That's the second most in the NFL. There's not a team in better position to put together a quality roster around Deshaun Watson going forward than the Jets. You trade for Deshaun Watson and you hit on your mid-round picks. You hit on the first-round pick you get next year. You trade Darnold for a second-round pick. The Jets have enough assets where they could get Watson, spend their cap space, and hit on their other picks where they could put a capable team around a quarterback who's only 25 years old. So I think Joe Douglas has to, break his own rules, so to speak, because Deshaun Watson's worth it. Plus, here's the other thing. The Jets are dealing from a position of strength when you talk about the fact they have the second overall pick. That pick is way more valuable than anything that could be offered from a draft pick perspective. Because we know the Jaguars are not putting the first pick up for sale. They're taking Trevor Lawrence. A couple of years ago, when the Browns had the second overall pick and they moved back, that was when Carson Wentz got picked by the Eagles. You know what the Browns got in that deal? They got an extra 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. So if the Texans don't love one of these quarterbacks coming out, they still would want the Jets pick at 2 because then they could trade down and get even more picks. And if you're Nick Caserio, how do you sell hope to a fan base that is just rightfully just frustrated, angry, and pretty soon just might not care at all? You sell hope on the fact that you could stockpile all these picks by then taking the Jets pick and trading down. So there's options for the Texans with a Watson trade, but I always go back to this. To me, the Jets are still in the driver's seat to get him if they truly want him. And I understand Joe Douglas can't come out and say, yeah, we're going to be all in and trade for Deshaun Watson. A, it's illegal, and B, that would hurt your negotiating leverage. But Watson's worth whatever it takes. If it's 3 first-round picks, think about it like this. It's your own first-round pick for coming off a 2-14 season. You got a 25-year-old sure thing at quarterback. And if it's 2 first-round picks, it's basically Jamal Adams. So you trade Jamal Adams and your first-round pick this year for Deshaun Watson? Where do I sign if I'm a Jet fan? That's why the Jets need to be all in. And if Joe Douglas is good at his job, like I think a lot of Jet fans believe he is, and have some confidence that he's a capable football guy, then you should still be able to build a good team without having a first-round pick, let's say, for 2 years. And who knows? Maybe they get a late 1 for Sam, so they end up actually having another first-round pick. Or they don't end up having to trade all 4 1s over the next 2 years. You could win in the NFL without having a first-round pick. If you have a great quarterback, that elevates everything else on your roster. And once again, I understand there are some that say, why would Deshaun Watson want to go to a team that went 2-14? Well, he'd want to go to a team that went 2-14 because it's not just about next year. It's about big picture, long term. Deshaun Watson's not Brett Favre in 2008 if you're the Jets. Deshaun Watson's the guy that you hope is your quarterback for the next 10 to 12 years, realistically. So if you sell him on New York and getting out of Houston, most importantly, and he wanted the Texans to interview Saleh, I believe he would waive the no trade, and then it'd be on the Jets to surround him with players. Use that $80 million in cap space. Sell yourself on the fact that he'd become the biggest star in New York City. It's not hard. So, I understand Joe Douglas, once again, is not going to come out and say, yep, we're all in for Deshaun Watson. But the Jets project to have $80 million in cap space. Watson's cap hit's only $10 million. There's not a team in the league in a better position to now surround Deshaun with talent going forward than the Jets. They're not going to win the Super Bowl year one with Deshaun, but I can promise you this. They're going to be infinitely better automatically with Saleh coaching the team and the fact that Deshaun Watson, as good as he is now a quarterback. That's why you do it. Oh, but Jake, they're going to have to give up so much. So what? If you don't have a quarterback, you can't win in the NFL. The Vikings are stuck right now. The Raiders are stuck right now. The Bears are stuck right now. They have some good rosters, and they can't win. Why is that? They don't have a quarterback. What were the Bucs before Tom Brady? Good roster, couldn't win. Won 7 games last year. You get the quarterback, you figure out the rest. That's why if Deshaun Watson's available and you're the Jets, I don't care really what it takes, within reason, of course, but you do whatever and get the guy. I'm not saying you trade 4 ones and Quentin Williams. I don't think it will take that because the Jets' second overall pick alone is more valuable than any draft pick a team could offer. So the latest with the Jets is pretty simple. Sam Darnold's out. It's a matter of do they take Zach Wilson or Fields, or do they go out there and be all in like I believe they need to and try and get Deshaun Watson?